facts than we can about issues that we can't quantify. And they've been all well documented through science. So that was that portion of it. As far as the heated blades are concerned, the question was more in reference regarding different types of ice throw mitigation measures. Active and passive measures are well known, and that's just one of them that I outlined.
In your application, you talk about the question about lighting and whether or not in your application that you would subscribe to ADLS if it was required. Is that still the company? Yes,
we will. As some people may or may not know, and Todd Luke, and the planning and zoning folks, correct me if I'm wrong, but the way that they approve these ADLS systems, the automatic detection lighting system, is that they're approved by a project-per-project basis. So we'll adhere to the ADLS and install it in the project if we're able to get an approval from the FAA for that system for this particular project. If not, we'll use whatever medium is appropriate for this particular project. But we'll conform to any rules and regulations per the FAA and what is allowable to be approved by the FAA for ADLS as well.
There was an issue or question talking about one of the Board of Adjustment members having a previous contract with Dakota Range. Does Commissioner Johnson presently have a contract with Dakota Range 3 for any aspect of the project?
No. As a matter of fact, as I mentioned prior, and I can't stress this enough, Dakota Range 1 and 2 are only mentioned and share a similar first portion of their name. But the Dakota Range 1 and 2 is a project that is going to be owned and operated. The power is going to be consumed by Xcel Energy. Dakota Range 3, even prior to us submitting the permit, was purchased by Engie.
Two separate companies?
Two separate companies, two separate projects. Even though they share a similar name, completely different, completely separate. And Nancy doesn't have, actually, none of the board members, none of the planning and zoning board members, except for Mark's kind of tangential relationship through in-laws of North Swiss, have any relationship, financial interest in the project that I'm aware of.
One comment was brought up about, several comments were talked about 2 miles with a waiver. In your outreach to landowners in the area, how far did you go out in speaking with potential easement holders or those that maybe were not? I mean, did you, proposed tower was in this section, how far did you go out and speak to people either for more easements or to see what their concerns were?
Yeah, we obviously sought everyone's participation within the project footprint, and then good neighbor agreements, approximately a mile from turbine locations, half mile from turbine locations.
Procedurally, what happens next in the event the feeder line and or the wind energy system was approved? Procedurally, tell board what happens next for the company.
Okay, so we still have to get our public utilities permit, state PUC permit, and that's a pretty robust 6-month process. We've already applied for that, and the reason being is sometimes there's an additional time frame premium added to transmission lines if they exceed a certain length, voltage, or cross county highways. And so we filed that permit prior to get to filing for our CUPs because we wanted to make certain that we had ample time for that process if it got lengthened because of the additional transmission line ask.
Those are all the questions that I had, Madam Chair.
Any questions from the board for Mark?
I have one more.
Sure.
In your application on the decommissioning, it has 5,000 per tower for 30 years. Do we have something set up where we negotiate that after 10 years?
Commissioner Mott. The current rules and regulations in the ordinance state that after the 10th year of operation, the board has the ability to set up some sort of a financial structure, financial plan. As the time of the writing of the staff report, it was based upon conversations that we've been having for the last 6 months, and one of those conversations was that it would be appropriate for the companies to stick aside $5,000 per tower for for 30 years. That was based on some other PUC things that were going on. That's what we were using it. When you take a look and read the decommissioning plan and what they had in there, we were talking about generating about $6.5 million over the course of a certain period of time. That's basically what their decommissioning is looking about, the same price tag. So the question is, whether you decide to add that as a condition if you feel it's appropriate, or if you feel that you wait until the 10th year under the way the current rules are written, and you have the ability to negotiate even something even greater than that at that point in time. That's something that you, as a board, need to decide based upon what the state's attorney will talk to you about. That's your question.
And Mike, our only concern would be that they're not duplicative to what the state PUC does. So if the state PUC renders a requirement that is equal to or greater than what the county levels requires, that we don't make that payment to both entities. We'd want to focus on one and make those contributions to that particular entity.
Very good.
Have you ever had to take care of this with a bond up front? Purchase a bond that would be...
Yeah, that's sometimes an option.
Mike, if you just repeat the question.
Oh, sure.
Mr.
Mr. Plasky, Tom, asked if we had ever had to place a bond or security. For Dakota Range 1 and 2, and again I'm naming this only for historical perspective, we were afforded, Molly's our attorney, she can correct me if I'm wrong, but we were afforded, because XL was going to be the owner and they're a regulated utility, so they were afforded security other than cash down, because obviously they would pass that on to ratepayers, and because they're a regulated utility, they felt that they would be, they should be afforded the least costly option. Yeah, so they were afforded a letter of credit or a bond in place of actual cash contributions.
So a bond then would be cheaper than doing the other payment?
Yeah, and the PUC, and I don't want to speak for them, but as I recollect from last summer's discussions, the staff from the PUC felt like as long as it provided the assurances of decommissioning and the owner was going to be a regulated utility, that it was the most comprehensive but least cost option. So, but they would, I doubt that they would afford that type of flexibility with somebody that was other than a regulated utility.
When they do a system with a bond, or do they then also upgrade that as an ongoing process, like 10 years down the road for expenditures that might be increased? I'm just trying to figure out a way. The thing I'm concerned with is not having enough money there for a decommissioning if it would happen to take place within 10 years or 15 years, not knowing what's in store for us with the system. I mean, the plan is for 30 years, but if you have a bond and it covers the full cost of decommissioning right from the get-go, it seems like that would make more sense.
Yeah, so the restoration language within the contract, which XL Energy, who's the owner of the project, would have to adhere to, that's very clear regarding what needs to be done in order to get that done and restore the land per the terms of the lease.
Even if it goes up sooner, whether it be 15 or 20 years.
It's their obligation in the lease to do so.
I have a question on, do you know where your operation and maintenance building will be?
We have identified a location to place the operations and maintenance facility, but the buyer, XL, and also conversely for this particular transaction, would have some latitude regarding what the final location is, because as you know, as the project goes through the PUC process, things will be adjusted and moved around. And if that is the appropriate location, then they'll place it there. But if they need to adjust things and move things around, then they're afforded that opportunity when they're dealing with the state PUC in that very robust process, which takes, like I mentioned, 6 months and very detailed as far as questions and answers and citing requirements as well.
How big a building do those usually, generally, what is it, about 50 by 100, or it's just an office and maintenance shop?
Yeah, it's not a significant building at all.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's there to monitor the health of the wind farm. There'll be like computer screens in there, and the local tech college, they'll basically are training. We did a great tour with Roger there a few months ago, and so they've got computer screens, and they basically are have scenarios whereby they are drilled on how to read the operational parameters of these turbines and then react to them accordingly, as well as there's fiber optics that monitor the health of the wind farm 24/7. So in case there's an issue, there's always people that will get advance notice to address any of those issues, and all the local fire and first responders will be given not only specific locations of the turbines, but geo-reference locations in case there's an issue. And then, of course, obviously there'll be staff that'll maintain the turbines themselves.
Madam Chair, any structure there would still have to get a building.
Building permit, yes,
Make the setbacks.
Yep. On your map for where was that? I guess I thought it was quite commendable that you guys stuck with the 1,500 feet setback on most everything. I noticed, some that are party to that there's maybe only one wind turbine that's barely touching that line, and he is a participant, so, everything looked good there, but there was another map that showed other proposed wind projects, and you did not identify the Dakota Range 1. I'm just curious, they don't overlap anyway?
They're fairly close geographically, but we're of the opinion that you're pretty familiar with that particular project. And we can give you an amended map if that's what you want to see.
You know where it's at.
I do know where it's at, I just thought it would be, just showing where it showed other proposed wind projects, but not that one. Any other questions from the board? You have some?
Okay, and 19, on the structure design, you've got hub height and diameter. On hub height, you start with 105 meters and go up to 166 meters. Now, I assume this is part of the application, so are you saying that you can go up to 166 meters with your hub height?
So we modeled the project for the most energetic turbine. And the reason why we did that is because when forecasting for restrictive setbacks regarding the amount we can move the turbines in this geographical box, we wanted to make certain that we use the most energetic turbine, because our options for windy areas within that footprint become limited. Once you set back from roads, once you set back from receptors, homes, factor in the shadow flicker, the noise, so on and so forth.
In other words, you're saying that this 591 foot is not necessarily set in
No,
stone?
591 is what the ordinance application, if they wanted to go higher than 591, Bob, they'd have to come back.
Right.
The application is for 591.
All right.
Yeah, we wanted to have the
All
most
right.
energetic turbine modeled. It could be shorter, but that was the tallest turbine that was modeled for this particular offering.
Any other questions?
We brought a sound and shadow flicker expert if you have any specific questions on any of those issues as well.
If there are no other questions, we would ask the questions for the findings of facts for this motion.
Sure, and I will go ahead and read those questions. And anyone, as we said, board, if you want to discuss any of these questions, go right on ahead. I'll pass the microphone down the line. If I hear silence, I'll assume that it was affirmative in a manner that would consider that that condition was satisfied. So, question one, is the board satisfied the standard findings of fact adopted in our bylaws were addressed by this application? Just raise your hand if you need the microphone. Are you satisfied the application was made prior to our application deadline? Good. Does this application meet the definition of a wind energy system? Okay. Do you agree that this permit should not become effective until all required permits are granted by the state and federal government, including the remaining application and licenses referenced in this application? Okay. Did the application and testimony at this meeting allow the board to adequately review how the applicant will satisfy requirements for site clearance, topsoil protection, compaction, livestock protection, fences, public roads, haul roads, turbine access roads, private roads, control of dust, soil erosion and sediment control, electromagnetic interference, lightning, turbine spacing, sorry, not lightning, not, we're not talking about lightning. Let's try lighting, turbine spacing. I was wondering where Thor came in on this. Anyway, turbine spacing, footprint minimization, collector lines, feeder lines, decommissioning, tower height and appearance, flicker, and noise. Any
I
discussion?
guess I have some questions on the haul roads.
Certainly. And I'll just make this point, with the recommended conditions we had in there, we did not have in there conditions I know were brought up at the last time. I think it would be a good idea to ask Mark those questions if you have those provisions in there handled.
All right, so what we were talking about, have talked about in the past is letting people know when you're going to be bringing something in, giving them like 2 days notice, because if you're farming and all of a sudden you're gonna close down a road, we need prior notice.
That is up there on the, no, this is, I'm just saying, is that what you're thinking about numbers 4 and 2, or 2 and 3? That's what you did on the last one. All roads less 3 days, and then notifying the neighbors 2 days, is that what you're looking for?
That's what I'm looking for.
Do you have any issues with either one of those?
No, we already have entered into a RUA, road use agreement with the county, and also
This would be
duplicated.
townships, yeah.
Yeah, and then I was just gonna say, we also duplicated a lot of that language and even increased it for some of the townships that we dealt with.
All right.
Anything else on Lucas then?
Thank you. Has the applicant demonstrated the ability to meet required setbacks for turbines from property lines, right-of-way, residences, businesses, government facilities and other structures, uses or features which would require a setback? Okay. Has the applicant submitted all information required to obtain a permit?
Nancy, did you want that map showing
I just-
approval
yeah,
one
I-
and two?
It doesn't identify just some of the others that are truly in that area, but I think there's one even further south of there too, but,
That one's-
maybe
that
just
one
an
has-
oversight.
That one
And-
hasn't been,
oh, it hasn't been approved? Oh, okay.
by the PUC. Would you guys have an objection, a problem presenting a map for the record
Just
that shows
for the
where
record.
1 and Dakota Range 1 and 2 are?
Yeah.
Dakota Range 1 and 2
So,
map,
you know,
added to
it's-
the map through the application.
Just so the county residents know where those will be.
Would you want to just restate that? Louis?
So, another condition that I would expect an amendment to add to it is that a updated map which would include the proposed Dakota Range 1 and 2 projects as well in the, is it
Yeah,
the
which
proposed
section
area
was
map?
that in?
19, I think.
Yeah, the
or something.
proposed area map. Was it-
It's the, it's a map of other
It's-
wind
it was
energy systems in the area.
Right.
Including-
Other area wind energy systems.
In any maps that involve other area wind energy permits, other area wind projects, sorry.
To the best of our knowledge, I don't know, you
Those would be the
Maybe,
ones,
know, yeah,
yeah.
Dakota Range in 1 and 2 is right.
of course, yes.
Yes.
Okay, next slide.
Does the condition that the applicant will obtain a haul road agreement and those two suggested points there satisfy the requirement for a haul road agreement? Okay. In your review of the written testimony submitted, the application or testimony provided tonight, are there any other issues brought up which relate to the zoning ordinance or land use plan that you feel need to be addressed as well? Okay. Are there any other issues our ordinance or proposed conditions do not address that you feel should be addressed with this action? Okay. Does the board agree that it is empowered to issue this permit? Okay. Do you agree that this will not adversely affect the public interest if operated according to our ordinance and the conditions prescribed? Okay. Does the board request the zoning officer to prepare findings of fact consistent with these questions to be approved by the chairperson of the board and any other items associated with this conditional use permit?
I'm gonna back up one. I'm still not, real sure that it isn't going to adversely affect
Adversely affect.
surrounding, non-participants, and surrounding people. I agree.
Bob and Tom. Not sure that it will adversely affect. Anything specifically in the adverse effect, is that health,
Health.
safety, economics, health,
Health, safety, and economic.
health, safety, and economics?
Does the board agree the conditions recommended by staff should be agreed to by the applicant and in addition to the conditions that were already stated, that being, and I could reread those as well, but the conditions that were read going on 2 hours ago by me with regards to the permit, as well as number 2 and 3 on that board, and the requirement that that the applicable map be updated to indicate Dakota Range 1 and 2 projects on those maps as well.
I would like to add number 6 to that.
Postpone?
Yes.
That would take form of an amendment.
Let's actually,
That way we'd get to, once we get through the findings.
my suggestion would be to handle an amendment first, and then to vote on the postponement secondarily. And the only reason I say that is because you probably want those conditions on there, and then to vote on the postponement.
Okay.
That would be my suggestion, would be to handle the amendment first, and then the postponement with the second vote.
Are you all right then?
So from there, those were all the questions with regards to this wind energy system. I did. So with that, my suggestion would be, unless the chair, of course the board, and this is obviously up to you and how you run this, but the suggestion would be to have a motion to, as an amendment, to add the conditions that you wanted on there first, discuss those, handle that, and then if there was a motion to postpone, that would follow.
So, at the moment, the motion on the floor is to approve. However, in the discussion of your findings, in the staff report and the testimony, there's been a litany of conditions, i.e. included in the staff report, Bob's 1 and 2 on the haul road agreements, and yours on the maps. So So the motion would be to approve,
To approve
to make
as
those amendments.
amendments.
We need to amend.
I need a motion to approve the amendments,
Yeah, a motion to amend,
to amend the conditional use permit.
what I just said. You guys follow me?